It was a beautiful sunny afternoon, but within seconds, Emma's life was about to change forever. As she walked home from the store, bags in hand, she never expected danger to strike. Out of nowhere, a man grabbed her from behind, yanking her into an alley. With her heart pounding in terror, she thought it was over. But then she heard it, her dog, Max, barking furiously from a distance. In that moment, she realized Max was her only hope. Chapter 1. A walk that turned into a nightmare. Emma had always looked forward to her daily walks. It was her time to unwind after a busy day at work, and Max, her faithful German shepherd, was always by her side. Max was no ordinary dog. He had been with Emma since she rescued him as a pup. They were inseparable. Emma had raised Max as a companion, and in return, Max had become her protector. That afternoon, everything seemed calm. The sun was beginning to set, casting a golden glow over the street, and the air smelled fresh. As Emma walked, she felt at peace, unaware that her life was about to take a sharp turn. When she approached an alley near her home, something felt wrong. It was quieter than usual, and there was an eerie stillness in the air. Emma quickened her pace, her footsteps echoing as she walked past the narrow passageway. Just as she reached the end of the alley, a figure appeared in front of her. The man's face was partially hidden beneath a hoodie, his posture tense. He blocked her path, a cruel glint in his eyes. "Give me your purse," he said, his voice cold and commanding. Emma froze, her heart raced, and she instinctively took a step back. She wanted to scream, to run, but her body was paralyzed with fear. Before she could react, the man reached forward and grabbed her by the arm. His grip was like iron, pulling her into the alley. Max, who had been walking a few steps behind, immediately noticed something was wrong. He stopped dead in his tracks, his ears pricked. His sharp instincts kicked in, and he began barking furiously, growling at the figure who had dared to touch his beloved owner. Chapter 2. The battle begins. Max was a strong and protective dog, but this was the first time his loyalty would be tested like never before. As Emma struggled in the man's grip, Max surged forward, breaking free from his leash. His bark grew louder, more intense. He could sense that Emma was in grave danger, and the protective instinct that all dogs possess kicked into overdrive. The man, surprised by the sudden appearance of the dog, tried to keep his composure. "Get away," he shouted, but Max wasn't backing down. In a split second, Max lunged at the man's leg, sinking his teeth into his attacker's calf. The man cried out in pain, and his grip on Emma loosened just enough for her to pull away. For a moment, Emma stumbled backward, almost falling to the ground, but she quickly regained her balance. She looked up to see Max still attacking the man, determined to protect her no matter what. Max wasn't giving up. He fought with everything he had. His growls were terrifying, his movements swift and calculated. The man struggled to free himself, but Max had latched on tightly. The dog's unyielding strength was something the attacker hadn't anticipated. Chapter 3. The Knife. In the chaos of the struggle, the man's hand shot into his pocket, pulling out a small knife. He waved it in Max's direction, trying to scare him off, but Max was relentless. With one swift motion, the man slashed the air, narrowly missing Max's face. Emma screamed, horrified at what could happen next. Max, though injured, refused to back down. His loyalty was unmatched. With a sudden burst of energy, he leapt again, this time managing to bite the man's arm. The attacker howled in pain, but his grip on the knife was firm. He raised the weapon again, this time aiming directly at Max. Emma was paralyzed with fear, but then a surge of adrenaline coursed through her. She couldn't let Max fight alone. Her eyes darted around, desperately searching for anything to defend herself. Her hands grasped a broken bottle on the ground, leftover trash from the street, and with trembling hands, She hurled it at the attacker. The bottle struck his shoulder, forcing him to turn away in pain. This gave Max the opening he needed. In one swift motion, Max lunged forward and bit down hard on the man's wrist, forcing him to drop the knife. The man staggered back, looking around frantically for a way to escape. Chapter 4: The Escape. The man was cornered. Max stood tall, still growling fiercely, and Emma was backed up against the alley wall, her heart still racing. The attacker realized he was losing the battle. He stumbled back, looking over his shoulder, and before Emma could process what was happening, he turned and ran. Max didn't let up immediately. He gave chase, but after a few moments, Emma called out to him, her voice shaking but filled with relief. Max, it's okay. He's gone." Max paused, his body tense, but when he heard her voice, he slowly turned back toward her. The reality of what had just happened hit Emma like a wave. She collapsed to her knees, her hands trembling as she reached out to Max. She couldn't believe what had just occurred. Max had risked his life to save hers. Chapter 5: After the Storm. The police arrived soon after, their sirens wailing in the distance. Emma gave her statement, and the officers praised Max's bravery. They were amazed by how quickly he had intervened. Emma, still shaken, hugged Max close, tears in her eyes. The community rallied around Emma and Max. Local news outlets picked up the story, and Max was recognized for his heroism. Emma was grateful for the outpouring of support, but she knew that none of it mattered compared to the bond she shared with Max. Max had saved her life. He had put himself in danger without hesitation, without thinking of his own safety. He had been her protector, her hero, and now, more than ever, Emma appreciated the incredible loyalty and love that dogs give so selflessly. Chapter 6: Healing Together. Max was taken to the vet, and though he had a few cuts and bruises, he was otherwise fine. Emma stayed by his side, comforting him as he had comforted her so many times before. They both needed time to heal. The trauma of the event stayed with them for weeks, but their bond grew even stronger. Emma realized that Max wasn't just a dog. He was her guardian, her savior, and her family. In the months that followed, Emma began volunteering at a local shelter, determined to give back and share the story of Max's bravery. She spoke to anyone who would listen, sharing how much Max had changed her life. As for Max, he was always by her side, never leaving her for a second. He had saved her life that day, but in so many ways, Emma knew that he had given her a new life, one filled with love, loyalty, and courage.